Enjoy.
No.
That's a $500,000 car.
I know.
Everybody screaming, gang, gang, gang. Before come and get you, you gon' blow the whole gang. Hey, she said, can she fuck me with my diamond shine? If I ain't in a bank, then I'm on the plane.
How y'all doing? What's going on? What's the hand?
Oh my God, it's so crazy.
You good?
What? You forgot you're gonna give it to me? What?
Chicago, Illinois. The late 1980s. To most people, Chicago represented opportunity. Towering skyscrapers, packed stadiums, thriving businesses, and millions of people chasing the American dream. But inside many black neighborhoods, life looked completely different. Factories that had once provided stable jobs were shutting down. Poverty was increasing. Violent crime was becoming more common. The crack cocaine epidemic was tearing entire communities apart. Families were collapsing. Parents were losing themselves to addiction, and grandparents were left raising the next generation. For countless families, survival had become more important than opportunity. One of those families was the Thornton family. Adolph Robert Thornton Jr.'s mother and father both struggled with crack cocaine addiction. Like thousands of children growing up during that era, stability was never guaranteed. Before Dolph was even old enough to understand the world around him, chaos had already become part of his everyday life.
Important clues in solving a mystery in Memphis. Who shot and killed young Dolph in his own hometown? This grainy photo released by police shows a person in gray pants and a dark hoodie with gun in hand, apparently firing. Also released a photo of a white car that may be linked to the case. Police have not said where the pictures were taken, but all around Makita's Cookies, where Dolph was shot down, are businesses with security video cameras. Surveillance video will be important to show exactly what happened here, and one camera should have caught it all. This one right above the door here at Makita's Cookies.
Crack cocaine had taken hold of families across America, and the Thorntons weren't spared. But fortunately for Dolph, someone refused to let him become another statistic. Her name was Ida Mae Thornton. She wasn't rich, she wasn't famous, she didn't have powerful connections. But she possessed something far more valuable: discipline, resilience, and an unwavering willingness to sacrifice for the people she loved. Seeing the direction the family was heading, Ida Mae stepped in and became the foundation of Dolph's upbringing. While his parents battled addiction, she became the person who would shape the man he would eventually become. When Dolph was still a toddler, the family relocated to South Memphis, Tennessee. But Memphis offered very few shortcuts to a better life. By the late 1980s and early 1990s, the city was facing many of the same struggles affecting urban communities across America. Poverty remained widespread. Drug activity was everywhere. Violence had become part of everyday life for many young people.
You know, I motivated Dolph to rap. You know, Dolph, I was looking for some weed, and the nigga named Shay called Dolph in 2006, 7. Dolph bought me 2 ounces. Dolph pulled up, bought me 2 ounces of weed. I was in my black Bentley. Dolph said this, Dolph came and said this shit on stage and everything. I was in my black Bentley, he sold me 2 ounces. That nigga say when I left, he say, man, bro, I'm finna rap. If that nigga can drive a Bentley coupe out rapping, I'm finna rap.
Opportunities were scarce, especially in neighborhoods where generations had been trapped in the same cycle. The difference was that Dolph had Ida Mae. Growing up with his brothers in South Memphis, specifically Castalia Heights, Dolph was raised in an environment where toughness wasn't optional. Castalia wasn't a place built on comfort. Respect had to be earned, and survival demanded resilience. From an early age, Ida Mae drilled the same principles into him. Never depend on anybody, work for everything you want, create your own money, trust yourself before anyone else, and always own what you build. Those lessons would become the blueprint for Dolph's entire life. As he got older, he watched everything happening around him. He saw addiction destroy families. He watched people disappear into prison. Violence slowly became normal. He learned just how quickly someone's entire life could change. At the same time, he also saw hustlers finding ways to make money, entrepreneurs creating opportunities, and ordinary people refusing to give up despite impossible circumstances.
He had this artist named Zilla. Now, I mean, this was with him from the get-go when he started this brand that he got now. He ain't nowhere around now. Man tell me, he sent everybody out the studio. Like, let me holler at dog. Like, man, you got your own everything. Where you popping, where you got the money, you got your team, you got this, you got...
Those experiences shaped the mindset that would later define him. By the time he reached Hamilton High School, Dolph was already searching for ways to earn money. He cut hair, hustled, and learned how to navigate the streets around him. Like many young men growing up in South Memphis, he wanted more than the life he saw every day. The streets became his first classroom. They taught him about risk, loyalty, betrayal, business, and money. Most importantly, they taught him independence. Years later, Dolph shared a story that perfectly showed just how dangerous his life already was long before rap. While driving from Memphis to Chicago for a court appearance, he fell asleep behind the wheel. The car crashed. People on the highway couldn't believe he survived. It was one of several moments where his story could have ended before anyone ever knew his name. Somehow, he walked away alive, and surviving became something Dolph got incredibly good at. As time passed, another dream slowly began taking shape. Music. What began as a simple outlet to tell his story gradually became something much bigger.
Hey, everybody. Hey, nigga, I'm can't stay right now.
We out here, man. Fuck dog, man. You hear me?
Nigga.
Yeah, man.
Hey, nigga, you ain't from some outside, man. Nigga from Chicago, bitch. You know
Oh,
what's
this
up with-
shit, nigga.
You know your background.
Crippin' blood shit,
Crippin'
nigga.
blood shit, nigga. Know the
Yeah,
fuck up.
nigga.
Yeah.
In 2008, Dolph released his first mixtape, Paper Route Campaign. The title represented everything he believed in: getting up every day, creating your own opportunities, chasing success without waiting for permission, and building something for yourself instead of depending on someone else. Later, alongside his longtime friend Daddy Yo, Dolph helped establish Paper Route Entertainment. At first, it wasn't some major company backed by millions of dollars. It was simply an independent movement built on hustle, belief, and relentless work. Nobody was handing them record deals. Nobody was investing in their future. Every step had to be earned from the ground up, and that's exactly how they built it. Over time, Paper Route Entertainment evolved into Paper Route Empire. Dolph built his audience city by city, mixtape by mixtape.
Man, hey y'all, I'm finna start a GoFundMe, man, cause I know a lot of you rap niggas fucked up out here, man. Can't do no shows, ain't save no money, so guess what? I'ma come save today. I'ma come pay you niggas rent if y'all got somewhere to stay. I'll pay your car note. I'll pay your jewelry note so you won't get repoed. You feel me? Whatever else you renting or leasing, I'ma pay that shit. But when this shit break back over, I want 10% of what you make, nigga. I'm saving you in a crucial time, so don't think I'm trying to get over on you. Cause no, you don't want to get put out. That'll ruin your career.
While many artists chased major label contracts, Dolph chased ownership. He believed controlling your own music was worth far more than signing away your future for a quick payday. Eventually, that philosophy made him one of hip-hop's most respected independent artists. His influence kept growing, his money kept growing, his fan base kept growing. And as his success expanded, he made sure to bring his family with him, including his younger cousin Key Glock, who would eventually become one of the biggest names in modern hip-hop. But success also brought something else: enemies. As Dolph became one of Memphis's biggest rap figures, tensions throughout the city continued to rise. Rivalries formed, jealousy followed. Music and street politics slowly became intertwined. What began as competition eventually developed into something much more dangerous.
I know y'all familiar with the situation that happened at Duke University a couple of days ago, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, they fired 2 workers from a coffee shop for bumping my shit in the store.
Hell no.
Matter of fact, I brought them out here, flew them out here with me, man.
Okay.
This is the kind of shit I do.
Real niggas do real shit. I see you, dog.
Know what I'm saying? So, keep in mind, this was a VP at Duke University that fired them. At work, for playing the song Get Paid. So check this out. This is what we gonna do. I know for a fact that VP at that school, he get money, but he ain't get money like Dolph. So look, check this out. Until y'all get y'all a new job, till y'all find y'all a new job, I got 20,000 for y'all right now.
Let's go. Roll it out. Paper Route Empire. We independent. We independent. Let's go. Hey, hey.
Years later, those conflicts would shape one of hip-hop's most tragic stories. The little boy Ida Mae Thornton, raised in South Memphis, would become a rapper. He would become a businessman. He would become a millionaire. He would become a legend. Yet after surviving poverty, addiction within his family, horrific car crashes, shootings, and years of street politics, his life would ultimately end in the city he loved most. Dolph had people wearing Young Dolph shirts, handing out Young Dolph CDs, pushing his music face to face, and making sure his name reached every corner of the city. This wasn't internet marketing or social media hype. It was true grassroots promotion, passing out CDs in the streets, putting up posters, wearing branded shirts, spreading his music through word of mouth, and pulling up on people personally. Dolph understood one thing early. If people didn't know your name, it was your job to make sure they remembered it. Long before the industry treated him like a brand, he was already treating himself like one. In 2008, he released his debut mixtape, Paper Route Campaign. The title represented everything he stood for: earning your own money, staying independent, and creating your own path instead of waiting for opportunities to come to you. He didn't stop there. In 2010, Dolph dropped Welcome to Dolph World, hosted by DJ Scream.
Hey! Get paid, young nigga! Get paid, young nigga! Get paid, young nigga!
That was a major step forward because DJ Scream had become one of the most respected DJs in the South, especially in Atlanta. Dolph knew Memphis would always be home, but he also understood Atlanta had become the center of Southern rap business. He started making frequent trips there, building relationships, introducing his music to new audiences, and learning how the industry operated outside of Memphis. That Atlanta connection became one of the biggest reasons for his rise. Dolph never wanted to stay a local artist. He wanted to be everywhere. He drove back and forth, met DJs, handed out music, networked relentlessly, and made sure his name reached bigger rooms. Linking with DJ Scream opened doors to a wider audience, while Welcome to Dolph World gave listeners a real introduction to who Young Dolph was. A deep voice, authentic street stories, confidence, that unmistakable South Memphis mentality. He didn't sound polished or manufactured by a label. He sounded hungry, believable, and genuine. After that, the music kept coming.
I'm gonna go with the 30 now. I'm gonna go with the 30 now.
Oh shit. Little bro said going with the 30, so.
I know about hell 30 racks a day. But nothing like this, all in cash.
It's yours now.
In 2011, he released High Class Street Music, followed by High Class Street Music 2. The series quickly became part of his identity. Even the title reflected his mindset. Dolph wasn't just making street music. He was making street music with a boss mentality. Then came 2012 with A Time to Kill and Blue Magic. In 2013, he followed with South Memphis Kingpin, High Class Street Music 3, and East Atlanta Memphis alongside Gucci Mane. That project title mattered because it represented exactly what Dolph was creating, a bridge between Memphis and Atlanta. Working with Gucci Mane turned out to be one of the smartest investments Dolph ever made. Early on, he reportedly paid Gucci around $10,000 for a feature. To many people that sounded expensive, but Dolph viewed it as an investment rather than an expense. Gucci was already one of the South's biggest street rappers, and attaching his name to Dolph's music instantly gave him credibility beyond Memphis. As time went on, the relationship became much bigger than business. Gucci respected Dolph's hustle, and Dolph respected everything Gucci had built.
Ain't nothing changed. I can't just get over the feeling. Like, it is what it is. It stuck with me, but I'll be all right.
Yeah.
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 That's just a normal thing when death occurs. It's just like, I ain't gonna say it's wrong to show love, but if it ain't genuine, why do it? Like, if it ain't real, like, you know what I'm saying? So everybody know, like I know, like you know. Motherfuckers didn't fuck with bro like that. You know what I'm saying? And me either, but we gonna be ourselves no matter what, and we gonna show up and show out and stand out.
They naturally began collaborating more often, giving Dolph a stronger presence throughout Atlanta's trap scene. By 2014, Dolph continued building momentum with cross-country trapping, Felix Brothers alongside Gucci Mane and Pee Wee Longway, and High Class Street Music 4. At this stage, he wasn't simply releasing mixtapes, he was creating movement. Every year meant another project, another city, another tour, another campaign, and another reason for people to pay attention. He wasn't waiting on radio stations. He wasn't waiting for labels. He wasn't waiting for permission from anyone. He was building everything himself. Dolph also understood how to create unforgettable moments. One story from his early performances perfectly captured that. After receiving nearly $5,000 for a show, instead of keeping the money, he threw it into the crowd. The club exploded. People never forgot it. It became another piece of the Young Dolph image, flashy, generous, unpredictable, and larger than life. He understood that sometimes creating a lasting memory was worth more than keeping the cash. By the middle of the decade, all the work was beginning to pay off. He had the music, the street team, the CDs, the shirts, the Atlanta connections, the relationship with Gucci Mane, DJ Scream's cosign, and the entire paper route movement behind him. Young Dolph was no longer just another rapper from Memphis. He was becoming a genuine force in Southern hip-hop. The craziest part? He accomplished it all independently. While countless artists were chasing record deals, Dolph was proving he could build his own machine. But as his reputation continued growing, so did the complications. In Memphis, success doesn't only attract love, it also attracts jealousy, politics, and tension.
The dog, you know, I gotta choose that side. Why? That man in the ground. He got kids out this motherfucker that growing up without a dad. How the fuck I look? I ain't got no beef with your guy or nobody that's with him. Or who, whatever. I ain't saying he did it. I ain't saying that. Yeah. Whoever did whatever they did. But for me to be fucking with a nigga that this man was hating, no. Yo Gotti was my favorite rapper all my life. But this man been fucking with me and my family and helping me in my livelihood and helping me feed my kids and shit. And looking out for my neighborhood. He the reason why he contributed to all we have today. For me to goddamn be fucking with some people and that man dead that he disliked it, and his wife, his girl out here raising a motherfucker by herself, I ain't doing that.
Dolph was rising in the same city where Yo Gotti had already established himself as one of its biggest names. Although things were respectful at first, Dolph's decision to turn down the opportunity to sign with Gotti revealed exactly who he was. He never wanted to become somebody else's artist. He wanted to become his own boss. As Paper Route Empire continued expanding, the relationship between Dolph and Yo Gotti slowly transformed into something much bigger than simple rap competition. Before the diss records, before the shootings, before everything turned deadly. This was only the beginning of Young Dolph's journey, a barber who grew tired of watching everyone else make money, a hustler who saw rap as a legal way to turn street lessons into success, a South Memphis artist who transformed CDs, t-shirts, street teams, non-stop mixtapes, and countless trips to Atlanta into a movement. Paper Route was no longer just a name, it had become a blueprint, and Young Dolph was only getting started. By 2015, Young Dolph wasn't chasing stardom anymore. He had already become one. Paper Route Empire had evolved from a South Memphis dream into a legitimate movement. Every new project performed better. Every tour became larger. Every year, Dolph continued proving that an independent artist could compete with anyone in the industry without sacrificing ownership. That year, he released High Class Street Music 5, The Plug Best Friend, followed by 16 Zips and Shittin' on the Industry. Even the titles reflected his mentality. Dolph believed the industry overlooked him and underestimated what an independent artist could accomplish. Rather than slowing down, he pushed even harder. While major labels spent millions manufacturing stars, Dolph was creating one on his own, and it was working. By then, his audience stretched far beyond Memphis. Atlanta embraced him, Texas embraced him, the Carolinas embraced him. Fans everywhere connected with his story because he represented something real. He didn't just rap about ownership, he actually owned everything. He didn't just preach independence, he lived it. Then came 2016, and with it came the project that changed everything, King of Memphis. The title immediately sparked conversation because Dolph wasn't asking for the crown. He was claiming it. After years of grinding through mixtapes, sold-out shows, and building Paper Route Empire from nothing, he believed he had earned that title. The project became one of the biggest releases of his career, charted nationally, and elevated him into an entirely different category. Young Dolph was no longer simply a successful rapper. He had become one of the biggest faces of independent hip-hop. But while fans celebrated his success, not everyone back home shared that excitement. The tension between Dolph and Yo Gotti became impossible to ignore. For years, people debated what truly caused the fallout. According to Dolph, one issue involved a woman both men had allegedly been involved with. Dolph openly claimed Gotti became upset after learning about the situation and never viewed him the same afterward. Whether that was the only reason remains unknown. But one thing is certain. From that point forward, their relationship only continued to deteriorate. Then there was Big Jook. To the public, he was simply Yo Gotti's older brother. But throughout Memphis, Big Jook carried a much different reputation. Long before CMG became one of hip-hop's biggest labels, he was known in the streets as someone with influence, connections, and a major role in helping finance Gotti's rise. People respected him. People feared him. His name carried weight throughout the city. That's why Young Dolph's comments about him stood out. According to Dolph, before either of them became famous, he and Big Jook had known each other through the streets. There was even a time when they were on good terms, and Dolph claimed he had looked out for him. But as the divide between Paper Route Empire and CMG continued growing, Dolph believed Big Jook had chosen a side, and he took that personally. Rather than keeping those feelings private, he put them into his music. In 2016, Dolph released Rich Crack Baby, one of the most personal projects of his career. The title reflected the addiction that had impacted his family, while giving listeners a deeper look into his upbringing. It proved he could make records about far more than money, jewelry, and hustling. Then came 2017. Dolph released Gelato. By this point, the tension between PRE and CMG was no longer a rumor, and on Gelato, Dolph stopped holding back. The project featured Play Wit Yo Bitch, a diss track that instantly became one of the most talked about songs in Memphis. Throughout the record, Dolph openly mocked Yo Gotti. He questioned his credibility. He portrayed himself as an independent artist who had built everything without anyone's help while repeatedly taking shots at Gotti and those around him. But what really grabbed everyone's attention was the disrespect aimed toward Big Jook. Dolph wasn't only targeting Gotti anymore, he was taking aim at the entire camp. At one point, He mocked Big Jook's image and reputation in a way many people throughout Memphis considered deeply disrespectful. The record immediately became a major street conversation. Fans debated it. Bloggers covered it. People started choosing sides. PRE or CMG, Dolph or Gotti. And every time people expected Dolph to ease off, he pushed even harder. That was part of what separated him from everyone else. The greater the pressure became, the louder he got. The bigger the controversy became, the more fearless he appeared. By the summer of 2017, Young Dolph had reached the highest point of his career. King of Memphis had elevated his status. Rich Crack Baby had expanded his fan base. Gelato had the entire city talking. Paper Route Empire was thriving. The money kept flowing. The shows kept selling out. The music had never been bigger. But behind all that success, the conflict between PRE and CMG was becoming more serious every month. What started as simple competition had turned personal, and what became personal was about to become deadly. February 25th, 2017. Charlotte, North Carolina. CIAA weekend had completely taken over the city. Thousands of fans filled the streets for one of the biggest weekends in black college sports. Hotels were packed. Clubs were overflowing. Money was everywhere. Cameras flashed nonstop. Nearly every major rapper seemed to be in town. Right in the middle of all that excitement was Young Dolph. After years of building himself into one of America's hottest independent artists, he arrived in Charlotte surrounded by his team. No major label, no billion-dollar corporation. Everything was Paper Route Empire. Everything was self-made. Earlier that month, he'd released Gelato, continuing his incredible momentum. The fans were watching. The streets were watching. Unfortunately, so were his enemies. As evening approached on February 25th, Dolph's black SUV traveled through uptown Charlotte near North Caldwell Street and East A Street. According to reports, it was around 6:30 p.m. during the height of the CIAA festivities. Witnesses would later describe absolute chaos. Dolph's SUV had just pulled away when another vehicle suddenly approached. Seconds later, gunfire erupted. Not a warning, not a handful of shots, a full-scale ambush. Witnesses said the attackers unloaded a relentless barrage from multiple angles. The sound echoed throughout the streets as people scrambled for cover. Nearby vehicles were struck, buildings were hit. Apartment complexes took rounds. More than 100 shots were fired. Investigators later described Dolph's SUV as being riddled with bullets. But there was one problem. The shooters had picked the wrong vehicle. Months earlier, Dolph had invested hundreds of thousands of dollars into a heavily armored bulletproof SUV. Round after round slammed into the truck. The windows cracked. The body absorbed the impact. But the vehicle held together. Inside, Young Dolph survived. No serious injuries. No fatalities. After emptying what felt like an entire arsenal into the SUV, the attackers had somehow failed to kill him. The streets couldn't believe it. News spread almost instantly. Photos of the bullet-riddled truck flooded social media. Hip-hop blogs exploded with speculation about who was responsible. And while everyone else tried processing what had happened, Dolph kept moving. That very same night, after surviving one of the boldest attacks in modern hip-hop history, he still performed his scheduled show. Most people would have disappeared. Most people would have gone home. Most people would have hidden. Young Dolph walked onto the stage. It was classic Dolph. Fear never fit his image. The following day, he pushed things even further. Instead of releasing a lengthy statement, instead of asking for sympathy, instead of acting shaken, he tweeted just 2 words: "You lose," followed by a laughing emoji. The message immediately went viral. More than 100 bullets. And Dolph's response was simply, "You missed." Meanwhile, investigators began piecing the case together. As police dug deeper, attention quickly shifted back toward Memphis. The rivalry between Young Dolph and Yo Gotti's CMG camp had already become one of Southern rap's biggest feuds. Fans immediately connected the shooting to the bad blood that had been building for years. Months later, authorities announced arrests. One of the biggest headlines involved Memphis rapper Black Youngsta. Investigators alleged the vehicle connected to the shooting had been rented under his name. Youngsta denied any involvement. According to him, the vehicle had been stolen before the attack. That explanation quickly became one of hip-hop's most debated stories. Some believed him, many didn't. To plenty of fans, the timing seemed impossible. A vehicle tied to one of rap's biggest rivalries had simply been stolen beforehand. Questions spread everywhere. Youngsta continued maintaining his innocence. During interviews, he brushed off the accusations while suggesting someone had been speaking with law enforcement. Many Dolph supporters interpreted those comments as another shot directed toward their camp. But while fans argued online and blogs chased headlines, Dolph focused on music. If someone could fire more than 100 rounds and still fail to stop him, he was going to make sure the world heard about it. In April 2017, he released Bulletproof. The cover instantly became iconic. Standing beside the same armored SUV that had saved his life, Dolph stared directly into the camera while the damaged vehicle sat behind him. It wasn't just cover art, it was proof. It was a statement. It was Young Dolph turning an assassination attempt into momentum. Most artists would have hidden from that moment. Dolph built an entire project around it. The streets loved it. Its centerpiece, 100 shots, directly referenced the Charlotte ambush. Throughout the record, Dolph mocked the attackers for firing more than 100 bullets and still coming up empty. The song exploded. For many fans, it became one of the defining records of his career. The message couldn't have been clearer. You gave me your best shot, and I'm still standing. The success of Bulletproof only made Dolph bigger. Later that year, he linked up with Burner for tracking numbers, proving his reach was expanding far beyond Memphis. Then came Thinking Out Loud, a project that revealed another side of Dolph. Behind the jewelry, luxury cars, and street stories stood a businessman constantly thinking about family, loyalty, success, and survival. By this stage, Dolph wasn't simply making music anymore. He was building an empire. Paper Route Empire continued expanding. New artists were developing. Businesses were growing. And one artist in particular was beginning to shine. His cousin, Glock. Instead of handing him success because they were family, Dolph treated Glock like a future superstar. He put him on records. He brought him on tour. He introduced him to fans. He gave him real opportunities. Over time, Glock evolved from Dolph's younger cousin into one of the South's brightest young stars, and Dolph couldn't have been prouder. By 2018, Dolph released Role Model, continuing one of the strongest independent runs in hip-hop. The title felt appropriate. Whether people loved him or hated him, nobody could deny what he had accomplished. No major label, no radio machine, no industry handouts, just consistency. Then came 2019. Everything changed. After years of developing Glock, Dolph finally showed the world what they could accomplish together. That summer, the cousins released Dumb and Dumber. The chemistry was undeniable. The energy, the humor, the Memphis swagger, the charisma. Fans couldn't get enough. What started as mentorship had evolved into one of rap's strongest partnerships. The project became the highest charting release of Dolph's career at that point. Paper Route Empire wasn't simply a label anymore. It had become a movement, a real movement, built without industry handouts, built from the streets of Memphis, built by a rapper who had survived more than 100 bullets. From the outside, it looked like Young Dolph had beaten everything: the rap beef, the lawsuits, the critics, even the shooters. His business was thriving, his music was thriving, his artists were thriving. For the first time in years, everything seemed to be falling perfectly into place. But fate wasn't finished with Young Dolph. Nearly 2,000 miles away, on the opposite side of the country, another threat was already waiting. Los Angeles, a city of palm trees, luxury stores, and million-dollar dreams. A city where Dolph would once again find himself staring down gunfire. Only this time, the bullets wouldn't stop at the truck. They would find him. September 26, 2017. The afternoon sun still hung over Hollywood. Tourists packed the sidewalks along Hollywood Boulevard. Families posed for pictures on the Walk of Fame. Street performers entertained the crowds. Traffic crawled through one of the busiest intersections in Los Angeles. Just a few blocks away, Young Dolph was handling another day of business. At only 32 years old, he had become one of America's biggest independent artists. Bulletproof had turned into one of the defining projects of his career. Surviving the Charlotte ambush had only made his name larger. Every interview, every concert, every headline. His popularity continued growing. Then, shortly after 1 p.m., everything changed. According to investigators, Dolph became involved in a confrontation with 3 men near the Lowe's Hollywood Hotel inside the Hollywood and Highland shopping district. What started as a verbal disagreement quickly escalated. Witnesses later told police the argument became physical. At one point, Dolph was knocked to the ground. Then one of the men pulled out a handgun. Gunshots erupted. Broad daylight. Tourists screamed. People ran for cover. Businesses locked their doors. Chaos spread throughout Hollywood. This time, Young Dolph was hit. Unlike Charlotte, there was no armored SUV protecting him. The bullets connected. Bleeding heavily and fighting to stay conscious, Dolph somehow managed to get back onto his feet and sprint into a nearby shoe store while the suspects fled in different directions. One suspect escaped in a gold Cadillac Escalade. Another disappeared on foot. Police later recovered the abandoned Escalade nearby. Within minutes, emergency crews flooded the area. Paramedics rushed Dolph to the hospital. Doctors immediately took him into surgery. For hours, nobody knew whether he would survive. Social media exploded. Young Dolph shot in Hollywood. Once again, fans across the world were left in disbelief. How could this happen again? Only 7 months earlier, more than 100 rounds had been fired into his SUV in Charlotte. Now he lay in a hospital bed after being shot multiple times. To many fans, it didn't feel random. The ongoing feud between Dolph and Yo Gotti immediately became part of the conversation. Reports surfaced claiming investigators were examining whether the shooting could be connected to the long-running Memphis rivalry. Rumors spread rapidly. Blogs posted non-stop updates. Fans debated every new detail. Meanwhile, Young Dolph was simply fighting to stay alive. And somehow, he survived again. The surgery was successful. Recovery began. For the second time in a single year, Dolph had beaten the odds. Most artists would have disappeared after surviving 2 separate shootings. Young Dolph used it as motivation. Over the next few years, his career reached heights it had never seen before. Paper Route empire continued expanding. Merchandise sales increased. Tours sold out. Streaming numbers climbed. And one artist was becoming impossible to ignore: Glock. After years of mentoring his younger cousin and developing him under the Paper Route empire banner, Dolph finally watched the investment pay off. Glock wasn't simply his cousin anymore. He was becoming a star in his own right. Together, they formed one of hip-hop's strongest duos. In 2020, Dolph released Rich Slave. Even the title represented everything he believed in. Independent, self-made, no major label, no corporate machine, just business. The album became one of the biggest successes of his career, debuting high on the Billboard charts and proving Dolph was no longer just a Memphis rapper. He had become a national star. During the album rollout, Dolph did something that perfectly reflected his character. He surprised one lucky fan by giving away one of his custom blue and orange Lamborghinis. Not cash, not backstage passes, an actual Lamborghini. The moment instantly went viral. Fans loved it because it felt genuine. That was Dolph, the same man who constantly invested in his people, the same man who preached ownership and independence, the same man who never forgot where he came from. Then came Dumb and Dumber 2. By this point, Dolph and Glock operated like a championship duo. The chemistry was effortless, the humor, the energy, the Memphis swagger. Fans couldn't get enough. The project debuted near the top of the charts and became one of the biggest releases of either artist's career. What began years earlier, as Dolph simply trying to put his younger cousin in position, had evolved into one of modern rap's strongest partnerships. Paper Route empire wasn't just surviving anymore, it was thriving. Then came the final project Young Dolph would complete during his lifetime: Paper Route Illuminati. Released alongside the entire Paper Route Empire roster in 2021, Paper Route Illuminati felt like a celebration of everything Dolph had spent years building. You could hear it in the music, the confidence, the comfort, the success. The hunger was still there, but now it was matched by accomplishment. Everything he'd sacrificed for was finally paying off. Paper Route Empire had become one of the strongest independent brands in hip-hop. Key Glock had become a star. The label kept growing. The business kept expanding. The money kept multiplying. And Dolph himself had become bigger than ever before. The numbers proved it. The sold-out shows proved it. Most importantly, the fans proved it. For the first time in his career, everything seemed to be exactly where it was supposed to be. As Thanksgiving approached in November 2021, Dolph made his way back to Memphis, home. Not because he had business there, because he wanted to be there. He planned to spend time with family, check in on friends, and give back to the city that had raised him. One tradition never changed, his annual turkey giveaway. It wasn't for publicity. It wasn't for cameras. He genuinely loved helping families and showing love to the neighborhoods that helped shape him. By now, survival wasn't the conversation anymore. The shootings were behind him. The business was flourishing. The music was winning. His career had reached an all-time high. Young Dolph had survived Charlotte. He had survived Hollywood. He had survived nearly every obstacle thrown in front of him. Returning home felt like the beginning of another chapter, but nobody knew. This trip would become the last one of his life, because only days later, a routine stop at a neighborhood cookie shop would change hip-hop forever. November 17, 2021. Young Dolph was back in Memphis. Not for a concert, not for a video shoot, not for business, just home. Everyone recognized him. They recognized his face. They recognized his cars. And that would become part of the problem. For years, Dolph had wrapped many of his luxury vehicles in custom camouflage designs. The cars stood out everywhere. Fans loved them. Kids pointed them out in traffic. But if supporters could recognize those cars instantly, so could anybody watching for the wrong reasons. That afternoon, Dolph cruised through Memphis in his camouflage Corvette with his brother. No security detail, no convoy, just family. Earlier that day, fans had already spotted him around the city. Pictures were taken. Videos were posted. People shared online that Dolph was back in Memphis. Nobody realized they were documenting some of the final moments of his life. Around lunchtime, Dolph stopped at one of his favorite places in the city, Makita's homemade butter cookies, 2370 Airways Boulevard. It wasn't a random visit. Whenever he came home, people expected him to stop there. Just 6 days earlier, the bakery had posted a video of Dolph smiling outside with a fresh bag of cookies. "This all I came for." Those words would become one of the final videos ever recorded of him. As Dolph pulled into the parking lot that Wednesday afternoon, everything looked ordinary. Customers walked in and out. Employees worked behind the counter. Traffic flowed along Airways Boulevard. Then, a white Mercedes entered the parking lot. 2 masked gunmen jumped out. Within seconds, the quiet afternoon became chaos. Witnesses later described hearing an overwhelming barrage of gunfire. People ran. Customers dropped to the floor. Employees dove behind counters. Windows shattered. Bullets ripped through the storefront. The attack was so violent that many initially believed multiple shooters were firing from different directions. Investigators later concluded the gunman unleashed an extraordinary amount of gunfire at close range. Young Dolph never had a chance. According to the autopsy and later court testimony, he suffered approximately 20 entrance gunshot wounds and was struck around 22 times overall. The bullets tore through his head, his neck, his chest, his arms, his torso, his back. One prosecutor later described the injuries as catastrophic. Inside the bakery, panic spread instantly. Outside, the shooters sprinted back toward the waiting Mercedes. But the attack wasn't completely unanswered. Dolph's brother, who had been with him moments earlier, reportedly returned fire before escaping the area. Investigators would later recover evidence from the exchange that helped build the case. The shooters climbed back into the Mercedes and disappeared. Less than a minute after it started, it was over. The king of Memphis was gone. At 12:24 p.m., Memphis police received reports of shots fired at 2370 Airways Boulevard. Officers rushed to the scene. What they found shocked even experienced investigators. Young Dolph lay dead outside the same bakery he loved, the same place he visited every time he returned home, the same place where only days earlier he had smiled into a camera holding fresh cookies. News spread across Memphis almost immediately, then across Tennessee, then across the country. Fans flooded the scene. People cried openly in the streets. Flowers, candles, teddy bears, handwritten messages. They quickly covered the sidewalk outside Makita's Cookies. Artists from across hip-hop reacted in disbelief. Gucci Mane, Megan Thee Stallion, Quavo, Chance the Rapper, PNB Rock. Tributes poured in from every direction. To many people, it felt painfully familiar. Another independent superstar, another hometown hero, another man who had survived previous attempts on his life, only to lose it in the city he loved most. But while Memphis mourned, investigators were already launching one of the largest manhunts in Tennessee history. Because somewhere out there, the men responsible for killing young Dolph were still free, and the search had only just begun. November 17th, 2021. Memphis was grieving, while memorials continued growing outside Makita's homemade butter cookies. Detectives were chasing leads. The first hours were frantic. Crime scene investigators flooded 2370 Airways Boulevard. Shell casings covered the parking lot. Surveillance footage was collected from surrounding businesses. Witnesses were interviewed one by one. One detail immediately stood out. The killers had escaped in a white Mercedes-Benz. Police knew finding that vehicle could lead them straight to the shooters. For 3 days, investigators searched relentlessly. Then finally, the Mercedes was discovered abandoned in Orange Mound, less than 15 minutes from where young Dolph had been murdered. At first, it looked like the killers had simply abandoned the Mercedes and disappeared. But experienced investigators knew criminals rarely vanish without leaving something behind. Cars tell stories. Fingerprints tell stories. DNA tells stories. And this Mercedes was about to tell one. Crime scene technicians carefully processed the vehicle. Detectives began connecting the dots. The Mercedes had been reported stolen only days before Dolph's murder. Who stole it? Who drove it? Who abandoned it? And why was it left in Orange Mound? Then investigators uncovered another interesting detail. The abandoned house where the Mercedes was recovered wasn't just another empty property. Years earlier, an up-and-coming Memphis rapper had filmed a music video there. His rap name? Straight Drop. For the first time, detectives had a name. Not enough for an arrest, not enough for a warrant, but enough to start digging. Meanwhile, across Memphis, rumors spread faster than facts. Everybody claimed they knew what happened. Everybody knew somebody who supposedly knew the truth. But detectives weren't chasing rumors. They were chasing evidence. Phone records, surveillance footage, DNA, witness testimony. Piece by piece, investigators built a timeline, and the more they uncovered, the clearer it became. Young Dolph's murder didn't look random. It looked carefully planned. The kind of plan that takes days, maybe weeks, maybe even longer. Once the abandoned getaway car was recovered, the investigation accelerated. The city demanded answers. Young Dolph wasn't just another rapper. He was one of Memphis's biggest success stories, an independent mogul, a businessman, a father, a hometown hero. Now he was gone, and somebody had to answer for it. Tips poured into police departments and federal agencies. Reward money increased. Detectives worked around the clock reviewing surveillance footage, analyzing cell phone data, interviewing witnesses, and following every possible lead. Meanwhile, the people responsible were trying to disappear, but disappearing isn't easy when an entire country is looking for you.